values more in line with the South. I think.
So we're doing an agat here. We're doing an agadita on in Sota Yud Aleph and Aleph. It has to do with Yitzias Mitzrayim. All right, go. Nischachma. All right. So let's just get it. Let's get. What does the pasuk say? So in the Torah it says that the Jews they grew in population, and the Egyptians perceived them as some sort of threat. So there was an idea. The Torah says Hava Nischachma lo, which literally means we're going to go ahead and outsmart them, right? But the Torah says what are they going to do? They're going to slowly but surely enslave them. That was the Torah's version of the Egyptian plan, correct?
But it should have said that.
But the fact that it says lo sounds like it may not be the Jews, right? So who's it going to be?
Let us be smart against these.
Right, so they're going to outsmart God. Right. So what they're thinking they're going to do is they're going to outsmart the creator of the universe. Okay, so I mean, right at the bat, first of all, what's implied?
They believe in God.
Well, no one said believe.
They know of a God.
They believe we believe in God.
Well, okay, that's for sure, right? They know we believe in God.
No, but they believe in.
But Ari is correct. At the very least, you're going to have to say one thing: that they acknowledge that there was an existence of that they recognize that the Jews had a deity that they believed in. Okay, that's for sure. In other words, there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's clear in Egyptian society. I don't care about the historical accuracy of this specific thing. I'm just saying in Egyptian society, they were presented with this small clan of Jews who eventually got bigger, and they knew what made the Jews Jews. They believed in their deity. They had some sort of God they believed in. All right. Okay. But what's the other? But what's crazy about seeing on the surface? What's weird about this? What are they saying? They're saying what? We're going to outsmart the deity.
We're going to outsmart that God.
Okay, so already at this point in time, you should start thinking to yourself. Well, what should you start thinking to yourself at this point? Okay, why do they give credence to that God? Okay,
Why?
what?
How do they think
How
they
is the question? Why is that a good question?
How?
Why is that
How
a
do
good
they, if they know the nature of a God per se, how do they think they can outsmart?
Okay, so because they're going to say fine. Why do they think they could outsmart the deity?
Well, they think
Okay,
it's true, not
what else
wrong.
can you ask?
You could ask, why do they feel the need to outsmart him?
Okay, what's driving them to outsmart? What's it telling us that they want to try to outsmart the deity? Remember, if you take the Torah's version, Havan Ischach Malo is simply we're going to outsmart the Jews. This is telling you that it wasn't just the Jews; they were trying to outsmart God.
Well, in a sense that.
So the Gemara says, so what's their plan? So b'med nidonam. Right. So what should we do to them? How are we going to take them down?
Not by fire.
No, Avi.
Well,
B'med nidonam.
how can we get them? Let's get them in to get them in fire.
Right. So fire is not going to work.
If we try sword,
Right. So that's not going to work either. So I'm not so interested in what their habmina was by each one. I don't care about
I'm
that.
very curious though.
But
Why?
they feel.
What thinking will they know?
Well, they're thinking in a very okay. Just think in a simplistic, idolatrous way. Okay, if we get them with fire, their deity is going to do what to us?
Right, to come back.
Get us with fire. Mida connect mida.
Apply to water.
I was about to explain that. Look at their thinking process.
God help them.
Right. In other words, why you don't see the Gemara ever say the Egyptians say, oh well, if their God has retribution, our God will take them down.
Right.
Okay.
Like if we do it by fire, then.
Weiter. All right. So what do they say they're going to do? No. Shh. What's the final plan?
Water.
Water.
Drowning.
Ella. Avi, read. Ella.
Oh, we need done in mind. Let's get them water.
Okay.
They're safe from their God because their God already said you won't bring water to the earth.
Well, he'll never strike the world down with water. Right. Again. Right. The Hain.
But their fatal mistake
Right.
was Yodin shall call maybe
Which sounds like such a silly answer. How do they not see that? I mean, that sounds like a very simple categorical differentiation. God said the whole world.
Doesn't that go in the face of the shot that the Mabul is only in one area?
No, as you soon see, but whatever. But they said, well, God struck down the whole world, right? So he's not going to do that again. But they said, but who said the guy?
Themselves of the whole world.
Oh, good.
Okay,
What was this, what's the second possibility? And let's go back and understand what's going on there.
Inami, Wayne Mayville, Alain Bond, but no from the soul. Hashem won't bring a marble to them, but he can bring them to the marble.
Correct. Okay. So now let's go back to the beginning. So you got to be sensitive to the lashon of the Gemara. The Gemara is what's the wording of the pasuk? Hava nischach malo. It's the answer, in my opinion, lies in what that term is indicating about the Egyptian mindset. Forget their belief in other gods. All right, just what's it telling us about the mindset of Paro? Just focus on Paro, by the way, because it's Paro's idea. What's Paro's mindset at this point in time?
Is it necessarily?
I didn't say anything invincible yet. All I'm saying is that Haba Nischach Malo sounds like what? They're using
They're using their mind.
their minds. Okay, they're using their seichel. So whatever's going on here, it's not a primitive religious type of thing. In other words, that they're using their seichel, and you have to go with that approach because in the Torah's version, in the simple pshat, Hava Nischach Malo is what? We're going to figure out a plan to enslave. How come they? In other words, right, exactly. They didn't just impulsively act in a manner to enslave the Jews. It wasn't an impulsive thing. They thought it out. They thought every step of the way out. So now Gemara is expanding the fact that they were using their minds for this to include the Jewish deity. But we have to take that further. Why is that the case? But it's showing you what are they doing? They're using their minds. It's not just simply an impulsive type of thing. All right. It's a very well thought out plan. By the way, in general, our enemies are quite often like that, or any good enemy would be like that. I mean, Hitler's actions. I'm not comparing Amalek to Egypt, but Hitler's actions also were well thought out. Or Haman had a very well thought out plan. There's a plan, right? So Haman is chachmalo. We have a plan, right? It's not just an impulse. There's a plan here. Okay. So now, with that said, now what's the next step to take? We know that. Hold on to your point we said before, but we know that. That the Egyptian society viewed themselves as being the center of the world, right? And Paro personifies that. Paro was really driven by ego. I mean, you see, he projected
themselves as the sons of God.
Exactly. They always projected themselves to their people as being gods or godlike. That's like the whole medrash that he was out urinating by the Nile River. Why did they sneak out to urinate? Because they couldn't see. He projected an image. They never went to the bathroom, meaning that he was like a god, right? So what is he trying to do now? What is Paro trying to do to the Jews? This is the key point. But that's another good point. So Paro is saying that he. Oh, the part two. All right. So part two. So it's clear that Paro is thinking that he's going to be able to outsmart their deity. Okay. Right. But what's it? But let's understand. So what's his? Again, let's bring it back to Chachma. So where's the evil, so to speak, quote unquote, in Paro? What's the evil here? The real evil.
The real evil?
Yeah, the real evil. The evil that Paro personifies. So what would you say?
Overestimate yourself. What? Can you overestimate anything more than yourself?
You can.
Limiting God.
No.
Again,
I don't think that was your issue. It's a coincidence that we're using Havanis Chachmalo against the Jews. In other words, there's a reason why it's this Chachmalo and that it's targeting the Jewish people.
Well, the God is the God.
But forget and the Jewish God as well. I'm saying the whole package. The whole package. Right. Oh, that's another good point. In other words, they're clearly.
The only way to win.
Well, they're clearly saying that we're gonna manipulate. We understand how the laws of Sarva Onesh work, right? So therefore,
we know how your God operates. Therefore, we will outsmart him on his own.
Right. We know how your God exactly. We know how your God operates. We're in touch with how the Jewish deity operates. So we're not worried about. We can devise a plan that will outsmart him, right? But I think the idea is that what I mean. Just to take it one step further. In other words, it would be the greatest validation of their ideology to show that they were able to outsmart the Jews. What makes the Jews, right? The Jewish deity. Okay? You can't ever lose that word. In other words, the Jewish deity is what made the Jewish people different via God is the fact that they're about chachma. They're about knowledge. So if we're going to be able to use our knowledge to outsmart them and to enslave them, well, what does that tell us about our ideology? It's superior. Exactly. What this isn't telling you is that I think the Gemara is telling you is that don't just look at it as simply a population threat, but rather there is an ideological incentive here on the part of the Egyptians. As a proof, I'll just show you as a proof why this how this works. So a good proof of this idea exists. A similar concept to this idea exists when you see the differentiation between how the non-Jews broke up the Torah versus the way the Torah breaks up the Torah. All right, the system of prakim is really what? Chapters are The Jews didn't write chapters.
Right.
Parachav Bey is not a Jewish thing, okay? But how do we know how ideas are broken up in the Torah? What system? Spaces. Stumas and psuchas. In other words, spacing in the Torah is how we know that there's a break from one idea to another. Okay? Now you have a perfect example of how a superficial reading can lead to the incorrect way. Is take a look at the end of Parshas Chukas. Okay? So if you look, I think you can all see this. So it's Parachaf Beis, Pasuk Aleph is the last pasuk in Parshas Chukas. Okay, and what does that pasuk say? Vayisu b'nei Yisrael vayachanu ba'arvos Moav me'ever li'Yarden Yerecha. So the Jews encamped in Arvos Moav. Okay, now who controlled Moav? The parsha after Chukas. Who controlled Balak? So so there's a stuma here. Okay, there's chapter 22, verse 1 is the last verse of Parshas Chukas. It's followed by a break. And then what starts here, Pasuk Beis, is Vayar Balak ben Tzipor. Okay? So the question is, now think about it. Why would the Torah break it up the way it did? Wouldn't it make more sense to break it up the way the Christians broke it up? The stuma should have come after. It says, Vayaku osov as banav es kolama ad bilti hishalo sarid, vayurshu es artso. End of Parshas Chukas. Parshas Balak starts with, Vayisu b'nei Yisrael v'achnu b'ros Moav. Why would the Torah break it up the way it did versus the way the Christians? What does that mean? Let's take the non-Jewish way, okay? If you read it the non-Jewish way, when Bnei Yisrael encamp in Arvos Moav, right? What's that going to do from Balak's perspective? How do you view that if you're Balak?
Who the people in my life?
What say again? War, right? You're encroaching, and they went into Arvos Moav. That's his land. So how do you view that? That's an encroachment. And what do you do when someone invades your territory? What do you do?
Retaliate.
Well, you respond. Okay. So if you look at in the non-Jewish version, this is purely a military phenomenon. Balak is responding to the encroachment of the Jews in his land, right? But the Torah tells you no. What's the Torah? By breaking it up, the Torah is telling you what?
It has no connection.
Not no connection, but what?
Not a military.
It's not a simple response.
Well, Balak was looking for a pretext to attack the Jews. He really exactly. It was really ideological. He had an ideological problem with the Jewish people. He just needed a pretext to attack them. So they entered my land, but it wasn't a military thing. What? So that idea I think is similar here. In other words, the Gemara is really trying to bring out is don't look at Paro's planning against the Jews as simply like the desire to enslave a group of people, but there's an ideological component to it, which is to show the dominance of his intellect, right, over their intellect. So if you're going to dominate your intellect over theirs, you have to show that I can outsmart their deity. Okay, I have to show that I can outsmart their God. If I can outsmart their God, I'm showing that my system of knowledge, my knowledge, supersedes their knowledge.
Well, when he said
It's not. I'm not. The concern of the Agatha is not the perception of the specific like hakir of who God was. It simply is that they know that this religion, right, is one based on chachma. That's the essence of the religion. So we can use our chachma to outsmart them. That shows that our ideology is superior to their ideology.
Okay.
You understand?
Where does that idea come from? That you would have that understanding that our religion is based off of chachma?
Because I think that's why it says hava nis chachma lo, and why the Gemara takes that idea to not simply to mean that we're out there to figure out a brilliant plan to enslave these people, but rather if introducing God means now it's ideological. It's no longer simply we want to enslave these people because we want people to work for us. It's now there's an ideological component to it, that we want to show that our ideology is superior to theirs.
We're understanding it based off of the specific word choice.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what the Gemara is doing. The Gemara is taking nischachma and telling you don't just think of it limited to just simply as like just like wanting to like to enslave African Americans. That was a purely economical idea. It wasn't necessarily driven by an ideological concept that the white man is by definition superior.
No, that was made after the fact.
Exactly. But this is all along telling you we're going to show that we're superior to these people. We are superior to the Jewish race. All right. And how do you show that? Outsmarting their deity. All right. What greater expression of superiority? Okay. So I think that's what was driving them. Now they said in any deity is always going to have a very simple basic system. Mida keneged mida. That's a simple idea. If I do something bad, right, he'll respond accordingly. Okay. So now comes what the point.
No, wait, but that can't be.
So Mida Keneged Mida is, I'm saying like this, Mida Keneged Mida, there's an intuitive nature to it. I'm not saying that God operates based on a simplistic idea like that.
No, but
What Arya was saying before was exactly the point by, certainly according to the first answer, is that, you see, the reason why, but you see, what's the problem? The problem with trying to outsmart, inevitably, is what's driving you when you want to outsmart someone else? Always.
personal ego.
Ego, right? And whenever ego is involved, you always make mistakes. So I'm not saying the mistake here was as simplistic as this, right? I'm not sure, but I can tell you one thing. Why did they think that there was no way that this could ever happen again? Because just like you said before, and the Torah endorses this idea as well. The Egyptians viewed themselves as the center of society, of the world, right? They were the center of the world. So how could the world exist without the Egyptians? I mean, in a very similar way, America looks at itself that way. America is involved, like in almost so many important countries. America's got their tentacles in them, and Americans tend to think that what would the world be like without America? Could there be a world without America? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Egypt thought themselves that way as well. Mitzrayim viewed themselves as, well, God would never bring a flood to destroy us because, meaning what? Meaning that how could it be that the world could exist without us? That's absurd. Whereas what's God's response, so to speak? He's saying, well, Egyptians are no different than any other nation. In other words, their ego, but what's the main point that God is trying to get across? That there's they were trying to propagate a certain ideological superiority over the Jewish people, right? But since they're through using their chachma, but the problem is since their whole drive through chachma was ego driven, inevitably going to end up making mistakes. They're going to end up messing up as a result of that. So I don't know. I'm not as concerned that they make this specific mess up. This is where, when it comes to the Gadata, you don't have to be so worried about the specific nature of the mess up because it sounds kind of like childish. The point is that because it's an ego-driven type of phenomenon, to outsmart them, that's going to lead to their downfall. They're going to end up messing up as a result of that. You understand? So that's the point of the Agadata. Yeah.
Well,
In other words, Asian Cherev means that they're thinking it through. They're saying, look, we're gonna outsmart them.
But I want to know the specifics. Or
I don't know. I don't think you're obligated to answer that. I'm not sure. Because to me, that's already getting too speculative. Let's put it that
why
way.
they write it?
What?
Why did they come out write it down then?
To show us there was a process here.
Okay.
There's a process of thinking. Like
The details.
I mean, they're saying that there is a notion of retribution that can exist by fire and by sword. There is such they sense that retribution could come about in those ways, but it wouldn't come about through water.
Okay.
But the point is, I don't care. I'm not interested in fire versus sword. Why didn't they think about, I don't know, sand as a possible way to destroy the Jews? I don't know. By the way, I hear that. Right, you could say that. You could say that the reason why, in other words, the Gemara is trying to emphasize that they thought everything out. But you could say that. You could say that Aish reflects the notion that, in other words, in their desire to outsmart, so it's showing that they're gonna sit there and demonstrate their complete control over the natural world,
right.
which
and
via
then
Aish.
The water. Then
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good point by the sword. The sword is an idea that also demonstrates a certain control because man, he takes the raw materials and he produces swords out of them.
Sounds like better options.
One problem. The fact is that in their thinking, there will be some sort of retribution here.
right. And so Rashi also breaks
It is
down that it
similar.
says like
What was the second answer saying? That God says, oh well, I'm not going to strike them with water, right? But rather they're going to run into it.
that. So instead of it's saying
It could be that their attachment to the ideology was so strong that they believed that they could outsmart the Jews to the point where they acted in such an irrational manner that they walked right into the water. The water was split. It's an amazing thing if you think about it. Think about it. They're chasing the Israelis, right? The Jews and the Hebrews, and they enter into this sea of water that split. Right. So if you were semi-rational, what would you say at that point? I'd probably stop now.
I'm out.
I'm out, right? I'm done, right? Enough for one day, right? And yet, what do? They went into this miraculous split, water. They went in after the Jews, which shows you one thing: they were so attached to this notion that they could outsmart them to the point where they would, on their own, with their own bechira, give up their own lives. You know what I mean? That's how attached they were to this ideology of us being mischakim, that we'll use our seichel to outsmart the Jews.
because this is all.
Is you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Amr Chia Barab Amr Simai Shlosha V'Osa Eitza.
So there are three guys, right, who were
this meeting.
right. Very strange, right?
Bilam, Iev, and Yisro. Bilam.
Right. So what's the first question you should ask on that? when you see that. There's two ways you could look at Bilam, Eov, and Yisro. Right. In other words, are we saying? Well, no. Are we trying to? Let's be a little more sophisticated than that. Are we trying to target? Are we trying to take features of their personalities per se, and somehow relate them back to the plan of Paro, or are they being used as paradigms of certain personality types?
Right.
The Bilam's a certain personality type.
These are archetypes.
Oh, very simple. Right. Very, very simple. In other words, the first one saying that there was a certain defect in Bilam that we see expressed in this in the ideology of Paro, let's say. Well, the other way going is saying that it doesn't matter, just that Bilam represents a certain type of person. Okay? Like,
Okay. So
do we care about Bilam? Is this about Bilam per se, right? Or is this about, or we're saying that it's meaning that we're investigating Bilam's specific personality, or we're saying that Bilam represents a certain type of person?
I mean, pretty much, is this Bilam or is this
Yeah,
about doing
and that's
back one?
I
Right,
say that it's both.
right.
I don't know why
Personality
there's
versus
mutually
personally.
exclusive.
Well, I don't think they are exclusive. I'm just saying, when I first saw this, that's the two things I was thinking. Like, are these examples of guys, or is it something about Bilam per se? I agree, they actually work together. But
Okay, but you're showing us through your process of internal.
oh, so don't worry, you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean. So now, what did each one do? Bilam did what? Bilam.
Bilam said, let's kill them, so he got killed.
Okay, well, no, shiatz means what?
He gave advice.
Right. So he was pro this plan.
Right.
Okay. Eov.
Eov was silent, Nishtagum.
Okay.
Shasa Nidan, he got judged concerned with affliction. Yisro
Shabarach.
ran away. Zafim Nebanav, Shishra Balishka.
All right, stop. I don't give a fucking fine. So Yisro was rewarded, but what did Yisro do? He ran away. Well, that's a funny reaction, right? In other words, running away usually means, I don't know, in military parlance, what's running away? Cowardice.
Right.
So the question is why?
Yell, boy.
Right. So what is it about Yisro running away? Like, what is that telling us about what's going on here? So to me, the most interesting one is Eov. Okay, Eov. I think Eov to me was the starting point. Let's start with Eov first, and then branch out to Bilam and Yisro. Okay. So someone here knows a little bit about Eov. All right. What is Eov? What is Eov? What is his dilemma?
He does not.
Happens. So on the one hand, Eov says, "I'm a great guy," right? On the other hand, what happens? All these bad things happen to him. So on a very simple level, he sees a tremendous conflict insofar as his notion of what justice should be, right, and God's acting on that justice, right? Okay. So what? Okay. So I'll show you how this traces back to Paro. What is Shasika? What must Shasika mean? The fact that he was quiet. What does that mean?
It means he didn't really know if this is good or bad.
Which means he was in
He's in doubt.
conflict. He was in conflict, right? Not saying anything means I don't know. I'm in conflict. Okay. So why? Now I want to posit. Why is this the well? I'd say the precedent. I don't know when Eov took place historically, but I would say that God's response to Eov's Shasika was to get the Yisurin. Okay, you understand? God's response to his silence was to get the Yisurin. So what did Eov see? What did Eov see? Why are we choosing Eov? Like, what Eov? I mean,
He has a problem with, he doesn't understand God's justice, so maybe there's justice.
well, because what doesn't he understand?
He doesn't understand why good people should get hurt.
Okay,
So maybe he thinks that the Jews should get hurt here.
no.
Why not?
Why would he think that?
Because good people get...
No. But I mean, you're close. In other words, why are we using Eov? So Eov reflects like the conflicted human when it comes to Schar Bonesh. Because what does he see? He sees on the one hand the Jews are going to be enslaved, right? So is that good or bad? Bad. What do these people do? They seem like good people. They believe in some sort of non-physical deity, right? That's good. On the other hand, but what's going to happen?
You're going to redeem?
No, I'm saying, but they're going to be enslaved, right? Which seems to be very. Them being enslaved sounds like it's unfair.
Right.
On the other hand, he knows that God is a just God.
That's what I said, so he thought maybe they should be enslaved.
No, I don't know. I don't think no. That's the point. He's in conflict.
Eov believes in a singular God.
So Eov again. What's the tension that Eov's facing? This plays right into why he gets
He
the
doesn't know
Yisurin.
if this is just or not.
Right. Well, he's got a huge crisis because on the one hand he knows that God should be just. On the other hand, these people being enslaved seems to be
Not just.
unjust. Right. So Shasika means he doesn't know how to resolve that. He's in conflict.
He doesn't know how to vote.
Right. Right. He can't resolve the conflict. So what does God do to him?
So God,
This is the important point. What does God do to him?
Oh, God shows him that...
What does God do to him?
He gives
punishes him.
What do you mean punish him? Gives him what? All these Yisurim, right? Because what does that force Eov to do?
Choose a side.
Quit.
No, well, what does it force him to do? Not quit.
Recognize that it's not about that.
Well, he's got to. Well, right. In other words, he's got it. Getting all these Yisurim forces a guy like Eov to face this conflict and come to some sort of resolution.
The reality that not all good people have.
That's what it ends up happening at the end. But I'm saying, but the Yisurim.
What didn't come to a resolution though? What?
Yeah, in other words, when a person, I don't care whether Eov actually happened or not. I'm just saying the idea that's being proposed here is that Eov had a certain. Eov represents the idea that you see you see a conflict. You see that there's. I know God is just, but for these people to get enslaved would be an aberration of justice. But that's impossible because God's always just. So, but what does he do? He's shasika. He doesn't try to resolve the conflict. He allows it to fester, right?
How do you resolve it?
That's what Sefer Eov's about. So what does God? But God forces him to face the conflict. Doesn't force him to resolve it, but it forces him to say you can't remain in a conflicted state. So he punishes him. He gives him all these Yisurim. In other words, like this. In other words, what I'm saying is like this. In other words, Eov, if you look at Sefer Eov had an underlying flaw that the Yisurim, right, that all the punishments he gets brings to the surface. He had an underlying issue. He couldn't resolve this conflict. He refused to face it. He refused to attack this conflict.
Refuse to face
Yes,
it.
it is a flaw. Because if a person just allows a conflict to remain a conflict, that's ignorance. That's ignorance.
What do you mean ignorance?
If he cannot
What is it?
resolve it.
Choosing a side. Better choose a side than just to remain in a state of conflict. So that's what the Yisurim
You
do.
can't know though.
That's
You feel
no.
that you can't know.
You mean you're unable to resolve the conflict?
Well, yeah, you feel they're unable.
But you've tried to, though. Have you tried to resolve it?
Yeah.
No, so that's the thing. He doesn't try to resolve it.
Oh, he doesn't.
Right, that's what the Yisurim do. The Yisurim force him to try to resolve the conflict. Even though his first answer is
They
incorrect.
just have both sides and doesn't do anything besides that.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Right, so okay. So, but if that's the case, so, all right, great. So now what does that have to do with Bilam? Now let's look at Bilam and Yisro. So what's Bilam? What's Bilam?
He took the side of course there's no justice.
Well, oh, no, but why does Bilam, how does Bilam's, think about what did Bilam do in the Midbar? What did Bilam do?
Try to curse the Jews.
Why?
Because
What do you believe?
he believed that God gets against the Jews also and get punished them.
So but he believed that, what could he do? He believed
He
that,
could affect God's judgment.
which means that forget, I don't care about why cursing per se, but if the Jews are cursed, even though they deserve good things to happen to them because they are good people, nonetheless, I'm going to alter
He
Skarvonesh.
doesn't believe in Torah.
Well, he believes that he can manipulate. He believes he's the means to manipulate
He
Skarvonesh.
believes that it's in human power.
Right, to manipulate Skarvonesh. He believes that God could be
He
tricked.
doesn't believe in Torah.
Well, of course, right, because he has a distorted idea in God. But who is that like? That's
one side of you.
let's see, but that's also Paro's viewpoint. In other words, what is he doing? He's using his chachma.
Right,
He's
so he
saying,
agreed with Torah.
right, exactly, but yet that's a very interesting thing. How was Bilam killed? It's very interesting. How was Bilam killed?
Sword. He fell on a sword. He was flying.
No, I don't mean the measure. It's just the way the Torah records it.
He gets killed.
Right, just stam. Right, no, he's not like other guys in Torah, other Rishonim who get killed in a very
Faithful to the mesh.
glamorous type of method.
But the Medrash says he was flying in the air.
I know, but the way the Torah records Erev Onan that God intervened. Right? It doesn't record that by Bilam. Bilam, it says he died in battle. He just died, right? But see, that's like the worst thing for that kind of personality.
God don't care about
Right?
you.
Right, exactly. In other words, if you're so important, then yeah, look how you died. By the way, just so you know, for the egomaniac that bothers the egomaniac. If you ask him, that's why egomaniacs always say, like, they want a lot of people to show up at their funeral. What do you care? You're dead, right? But it shows that you were an important person, and your sick, distorted view to think that a lot of people will show up at your funeral somehow feeds your ego because that means that you're important. But you're dead, so what do you care? You know what I mean? You being dead is not going to affect anymore your legacy. You're dead. You know? So that's Bilam. Bilam is in line with Paro's idea.
It's what the chachmatic ego.
Right, the chachmatic ego. So what does Yisro run away mean? What does that mean? What does it mean? What it means he runs away? What does that mean? I think. So it means that he realized that, see, Yisro, I'll tell you why they chose Yisro. So Yisro, the root of idea of Avodah Zarah is always based on what?
Falsehood.
Okay, but what?
Superstition, emotion.
No, those are what do you call it? It's really about Avodah Zarah is really a man-centric outlook. Okay, so what he saw in Paro, I don't care if he was advising Paro. The point is that in his investigation of Avodah Zarah, Paro's ideology personifies what Avodah Zarah is all about. It's about man being at the center. Right? It's his ego. It's the worst thing that could ever happen for man to do is when he uses his mind along with his ego, like Haman, right? It's a brilliant guy who's driven by ego. That is the root of Avodah Zarah, right? So Yisro running away, what does it mean he ran away? It wasn't because he was a coward. Yisro recognized that his ideology, right, and Paro's ideology, they cannot coexist. It's an impossibility. There's no mechanism that allows for the two ideologies to coexist. So that's what running away means. It means that my ideology and this ideology cannot exist together. That's
What was
Yisro.
his ideology?
Emphasize that point. Yahadus and ideology cannot coexist.
And what?
Yahadus and idolatry, Yahadus and idolatry cannot coexist. It's an impossibility. There's no mechanism that exists for them to be able to relate to each other. Okay?